That was a big win for Trump, wasn't it?
It was indeed. He won all but one county across Iowa. He broke 50%, and he's more than 30 points ahead of any of his closest competitors. So you had Jason Miller on the show in Iowa, and he said if we break 50%, then that will be a very, very good result for us. And they've got just that.
Yeah, they have. And yes, 98 counties for Trump, one county for Nikki Haley. And as you pointed out to me earlier, that was the University County, and she only won that one by one vote. In historic terms, nothing quite like this has ever happened before.
By quite some margin. The last person to win Iowa by the biggest margin yet was about 15 points. And Trump has significantly exceeded that, doubled that. So a really, really strong result for him. That Haley County is interesting because it's one of the more educated counties in the state, and it's also the state with the more independent and Democrat voters in it. So Haley is relying on a very flimsy base of support there, whereas Trump is getting those. Well, the same way he did in 2016 and 2020. He's getting those working class, lower educated voters who do turn out for him, as we found out last night.
No, absolutely. I was interested to see that of the 64 state congressmen and women for Iowa in the state house, 42 of the 64 endorsed DeSantis. Of the 30 Republican senators in the state of Iowa, 15 endorsed DeSantis. The governor endorsed DeSantis. It seemed to make no difference.
No, this was, as you said earlier, this was a groundswell support for Donald Trump's campaign. A voter I was talking to last week who was going to caucus for Donald Trump, he ended up not being able to. He was snowed in last night, which is very unfortunate for him. But he said that he started off liking DeSantis. And by the end of the campaign, he called him a good wannabe, but a wannabe nonetheless. He saw him as a bit too much of a politician, too polished, too many scripted lines. He said when he saw him at an event, he was too ready to be guided by the people there. And I think that shines a light on a really interesting distinction between Trump and DeSantis. They see Trump as their person. They see DeSantis as the person who's another Washington, D.C. politician. And I think that's probably that comes out in those stats there. He was backed by the local politicians. He wasn't necessarily backed by the local people.
Now, the responses, I was at the Trump victory party, very emollient speech by Donald Trump standards. All the candidates did great. Nikki did great. Ron did great. Vivek came from 0 to nearly 8%. This was Trump's nice way of saying, OK, you've had your fun. Pack up now.
Yeah, this is him saying it's time to unite the country. And by that, he doesn't mean let's all have a nice, sit down cup of tea with Joe Biden. He means you guys need to get behind me right now.
Yes.
And if he's looking ahead to November, he doesn't want the Republican Party to be split on his ticket. He wants to say and present this as an inevitability. And honestly, he's got some good reasons to do that. I personally think it's very hard now to see how Trump does not end up as the nominee. Yeah. Yes, we've got New Hampshire, might swing a surprise, but broadly speaking, it's very difficult to see now how anyone closes the gap.
And Vivek said, right, I'm now behind Trump. Kind of his campaign really was, wasn't it? Look, I'm MAGA. I'm the next generation of MAGA. So he's now behind Trump. That'll help Trump, won't it?
It certainly will. Vivek Ramaswamy is polling 4 to 8% in New Hampshire, which is the next contest taking place on 23rd of January. He will be hoping that Trump will be hoping that some of that support comes over to him, shores him up a little bit against Nikki Haley in the state. And Vivek Ramaswamy, I mean, he has played, but he didn't do very well last night. But let's face it, he did grab a lot of media attention. If you think back to August when we were sat in Milwaukee having this conversation, he won that debate poll. And I heard an interesting rumor in the crowd last night at the Trump party. Somebody was speculating that maybe Vivek Ramaswamy is a good pick, not for Trump's VP, but for his chief of staff. A doer, very intelligent, and someone who can drive change through.
And somebody who's set up organisations, employed lots of people. Yeah, I mean, who knows? Who knows? I think we're some way away from that.